Hey guys, tonight we're going to a party. A wild, glittering, non-stop party that roared for an entire decade. But this isn't just about the jazz and the champagne. We're going to peek behind the curtain of the Roaring Twenties into the boudoir of the iconic flapper. And I'll tell you right now, some of the beauty secrets we're about to uncover. Well, let's just say you probably wouldn't survive the morning routine. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, I'd love to see where you're all tuning in from. Drop your city and the time in the comments below. It's always cool to see how far these stories travel. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. The first thing you need to understand is the silence. Before the roar, there was a profound, heavy silence that settled over the world. It's 1919th, the Great War, the one they promised would end all wars, is finally over. But the quiet isn't peaceful. It's the quiet of a room after a terrible argument, thick with things unsaid. It's the quiet of empty chairs at the dinner table. An entire generation of young men is gone, vanished into the mud and trenches of Europe. A part of them was left behind. You can feel this silence in the air. It's a collective sigh of relief, grief, and exhaustion. On top of the war, the Spanish flu pandemic swept across the globe, a brutal second act that took millions more. So you're standing at the edge of a new decade, but the old world is in ruins. Its certainties, its values, its faith in progress and patriotism, all of it feels like a cruel joke. You've seen what the old ways led to. This feeling, this deep, societal shell shock, is the soil in which the 1920s will bloom. And you can feel the first tremors of the coming earthquake. There's a frantic, nervous energy buzzing just beneath the surface of daily life. It's the sound of a world holding its breath, deciding whether to scream or to dance. Most people, it turns out, choose to dance. A kind of desperate, life-affirming, almost hysterical dance. You see it in the little things first. The colors seem a little brighter, the music a little faster, the laughter a little louder, maybe a little too loud. It's a worldwide craving for now, for the immediate, for the sensory. The past is a graveyard, the future is a question mark. But tonight there is jazz, there are cars, there are moving pictures. And this is where historians still argue. Was the Roaring Twenties a genuine, joyous rebirth? A celebration of peace and modernity, or was it something more like a collective trauma response, a frantic, glittering party on the edge of a volcano, a desperate attempt to outrun the ghosts of the past by making as much noise as possible? In the midst of this, a strange and poignant little trend takes hold in parlors across America and Europe: spiritualism. With so many gone so suddenly, people are desperate for connection, for a final goodbye. You find yourself in dimly lit rooms, hands linked to a medium, promise contact with the other side. It's a quiet, sorrowful counterpoint to the loud, public revelry. A very niche and intimate part of the post-war world, where people sought solace in whispers from a world they couldn't see, even as the visible world outside was transforming at a dizzying speed. That old world, the pre-war world with its rigid rules and suffocating expectations, especially for women, feels like a story about someone else's life. The ideal woman before the war was the angel in the house, pious, pure, domestic, and frail. Her domain was the home, her purpose was to be a wife and mother, her beauty was a reflection of her gentle, compliant nature. But you've seen and done more than that. During the war, you weren't just arranging flowers. You were working in factories, driving ambulances, nursing the wounded. You tasted a different kind of life, a life of purpose and, dare you say it, independence. And now they expect you to simply put all of that back in a box and go back to being decorative. A quiet rebellion begins to brew in your heart. It doesn't start with a protest sign or a political speech. It starts with a glance in the mirror. The person looking back at you, the one defined by her father or her husband, the one whose value is tied to a set of rules made by a generation that just led the world to ruin, suddenly seems like a stranger. The desire for a new world, a modern world, becomes a desire for a new you in that transformation. You decide, we'll start from the outside in. You're going to shed the old world, literally. Starting with the clothes on your back. That heavy, cumbersome skin you're so desperate to shed is made of hollow-bone steel and what feels like a mile of fabric. Your morning routine is a ritual of construction. It begins with the chemise, then the drawers, and then the main event, the corset. It's a formidable piece of engineering, a cage for your torso. Someone, maybe your mother or a maid, pulls the laces at your back, cinching you in tighter and tighter. You take a shallow breath, holding it as the pressure builds. The goal is to create the fashionable S-bend silhouette, pushing your bust forward and your hips back into an unnatural, exaggerated curve. You can't poorly bend at the waist. You can't take a truly deep, satisfying breath. Eating a large meal is out of the question. Your internal organs are being gently but constantly rearranged. This, you've been told, is the price of beauty, of respectability. The corset is the physical embodiment of the old world's rules. It holds you in, keeps you proper, and restricts your every move. It's a constant physical reminder of your designated place in the world, and one morning, you simply refuse. It's a quiet, personal revolution. You leave the corset in your drawer. The feeling is dizzying. You take a breath, a real one, that fills your lungs all the way to the bottom. You can slouch. You can twist. The freedom is so profound it feels almost illicit. Historians still debate the true cause of the corset's demise. Was it a conscious feminist rebellion, women collectively deciding to unshackle themselves, or was it more a matter of practicality, driven by the needs of wartime factory work and the influence of avant-garde designers like Paul Poiret, who claimed to have liberated the bosom? Perhaps it was a perfect storm of all three. But for you in this moment it feels entirely personal. It's your first true act of modern rebellion. The liberation doesn't stop there. You look down at your skirt. It's long, brushing the floor, heavy with petticoats. It's a hassle. It collects dust and mud. You have to hold it up when you climb stairs, and it makes walking feel more like a delicate gliding motion than a purposeful stride. You think back to just a few years before the war, to the brief but utterly baffling trend of the hobble skirt. It was a design so narrow at the ankles that it literally forced women to take tiny, mincing steps. Special hobble garters were even sold to connect the ankles and prevent women from ripping their skirts by taking too large a stride. The absurdity of it now seems laughable. You were a bird in a cage, and then you were a bird with its legs tied together. No more. With a pair of scissors, you take off a few inches, then a few more. Soon your hemline is hovering at your ankles. By the standards of the day, it's shocking. To show one's ankles was considered risque, something only an actress or a woman of loose morals would do. But it feels practical. You can walk. You can stride. You can even run for a streetcar without tripping over yourself. You discard the layers of petticoats, feeling the weight lift from your hips. You are lighter. Then there's your hair. For your entire life, it's been your crowning glory. Long, heavy, and painstakingly swept up into the elaborate pompadours of the Gibson girl style, held in place with a fortress of pins. It takes ages to wash, to dry, to style. It gives you headaches. The thought of cutting it all off is still a terrifying whisper in the back of your mind, but the whisper is getting louder. This shedding of the old self isn't just about comfort, it's a statement. Every layer you remove, every inch you cut from your hemline, is a rejection of your mother's generation and the world they represent. Their ideas of femininity feel as outdated and suffocating as the hollow-bone stays of the corset you just abandoned. You need a new way of moving through this new, fast-paced world of automobiles, telephones, and motion pictures. You stand in front of your mirror, breathing freely in your simplified undergarments and your shorter skirt. You feel a thrilling sense of lightness, of possibility. But there's also a hint of uncertainty. You've successfully dismantled the old ideal. You've erased the S-bend, the hourglass, the delicate dressed-up lady. But a vacuum has been created. Society, and you yourself, will soon demand a new ideal to replace it. You've broken the old mold, but what will the new one look like? The answer is already taking shape on the silver screens of the silent movie houses and in the pages of the fashion magazines. It will be just as specific, and in many ways, just as demanding as the one you just left behind. The new ideal arrives not with a soft, feminine curve, but with a straight, hard line. It's an architectural silhouette, sleek and boyish. The French call it the garçonne look, which literally translates to boyish girl, and it is the absolute antithesis of the Gibson girl you just discarded. Where she was voluptuous, you must be flat. Where she had a tiny, corseted waist, you must have no waist at all. Where she had gentle, sloping hips, yours must be as narrow and straight as a plank. You look at yourself in the mirror again, this time with a more critical eye. Your body, the one you were born with, suddenly feels wrong. The natural curves of your chest and hips are no longer assets to be emphasized, but liabilities to be erased. The fashion magazines, which are multiplying and becoming more influential than ever, are filled with illustrations of these new women. They are all angles and lines, like elegant reeds. They lounge with an air of sophisticated boredom, their dresses hanging straight from their shoulders to their knees, completely bypassing the waist. It's a radical rejection of everything that came before. This new look is young, athletic, and androgynous. It's the body of a girl who can dance all night, play tennis, doctor a car, and smoke a cigarette. It's a body built for motion, not for display in a parlor. And on one level, it feels incredibly modern and liberating. You are no longer defined by your potential for motherhood, your childbearing hips. You are something new, something sleek and self-contained. But the reality of achieving this look is another matter entirely. Fashion is one thing, genetics is another. While you can shed a corset, you can't exactly shed your natural bone structure or body type. The garçonne ideal creates a new kind of anxiety, a new set of physical standards that are just as rigid, if not more so, than the old ones. The goal is to look like you haven't yet hit puberty. A flat chest, which would have been a source of shame just a decade prior, is now the height of chic. You read articles in magazines like Vogue and Harper's Bazaar that offer advice on how to achieve this fashionable slimness. The language is all about discipline, restraint, and youthfulness. The underlying message is clear: you're natural. Adult woman's body is out of style. It's a strange paradox. At the same time that women are gaining more social and political freedom, the right to vote finally being secured, in many places the physical standards of beauty are becoming, in some ways, even more restrictive. It's a subject of much debate among historians today. Was the boyish figure a true liberation from the sexualized, male gaze-oriented hourglass shape, or was it just a new cage, one that infantilized women and demanded a level of self-denial and physical punishment that was just as harmful as the corset? There's no easy answer. For some women, the look was empowering, a way to de-emphasize their sexuality and be taken more seriously in a man's world. It was the beginning of a lifelong battle against their own bodies. One of the oddest, most forgotten fads to emerge from this obsession with a flat silhouette was the debutante slouch. Young, fashionable women would intentionally practice pure posture, slumping their shoulders and tucking in their pelvis to create a more straight-lined, shapeless look. It was the complete opposite of the stand-up straight posture their mothers had drilled into them. This slouch was cultivated to make the loose, drop-waist dresses hang just right. It was a physical affectation, a performance of nonchalance and modern ennui, all in service of achieving that perfect, straight-from-the-shoulders silhouette. You try it in front of the mirror, you slouch. You drop your shoulders. You try to imagine yourself as one of those cool, detached figures in the magazines. But your hips still curve. Your chest still exists. The clothes don't hang quite right. And a sinking feeling begins to set in. You realize that getting rid of the corset wasn't the end of the battle. It was just the beginning of a new one. The battlefield has simply shifted from your waistline to your entire body, and the primary weapon in this new war will be deprivation. The boyish ideal requires a boyish appetite, or at least the appearance of one. And so begins the tyranny of the bathroom scale. The bathroom scale becomes a new fixture in the modern home, an altar upon which you daily judge your worth. Before the 1920s, scales were mostly found in doctors' offices or penny arcades. Owning one at home was uncommon. But now, they are mass-marketed, sold as an essential tool for the modern woman. You step onto the cold metal plate in the morning, holding your breath, and the number that stares back up at you can determine your mood for the entire day. Suddenly, numbers are everywhere. Magazines publish ideal weight charts, specifying exactly how much a woman of a certain height should weigh. The numbers are shockingly low. Calorie counting, once a scientific concept, enters the popular vocabulary, you start to see food not as nourishment or pleasure, but as a collection of numerical values, a series of debits from the ledger of your body. The pressure is immense, and it comes from all sides. It comes from the silent film stars, ethereal and waif-like on the screen. It comes from the fashion illustrations. It comes from the other women in your social circle who talk endlessly about their new diets. A strange, competitive air develops. Women boast about how little they've eaten, as if starvation were an achievement. And so, you go on a diet. But the diets of the 1920s are not the balanced wellness plans of today. They are extreme, often nonsensical, and based on wildly unscientific principles. One of the most popular is the Hollywood diet, also known as the 18-day diet. It consists of little more than oranges, grapefruit, and toast. For 18 days, the promise is a dramatic weight loss and annoying constant hunger. You feel lightheaded and weak, but you tell yourself it's working. You are disciplining your body, molding it into the modern ideal. When you get tired of citrus, there are other, even more bizarre options. You might hear about the lamb chop and pineapple diet, or the icebox diet, which encourages you to eat only what is cold. There are endless variations, but they all share a common theme: severe restriction. You learn to ignore the hunger pangs, to interpret them as a sign of success. You drink black coffee and smoke cigarettes to suppress your appetite, a trick we'll get into later. Historians are still trying to piece together the full picture of just how widespread these practices were. Personal diaries and letters from the era are filled with references to getting thin, but the true psychological toll is harder to measure. Was this perceived as a health kick, or way to be modern and fit, or was it a source of silent suffering? The evidence suggests it was a confusing mix of both. The public narrative was about glamour and self-control, but the private reality for many was a grueling and isolating struggle. Amidst this landscape of starvation, one of the most peculiar and frankly unappetizing diet trends was the chew and spit method, sometimes associated with the American great masticat or Horace Fletcher. Fletcher is which had its heyday a bit before the 20s but whose influence lingered, promoted the idea that you should chew each mouthful of food until it was completely liquefied and all the goodness had been extracted, at which point you would spit out the remaining fibrous pulp. While the original intent was supposedly about digestion, it was quickly co-opted by dieters as a way to taste food without actually consuming the bulk of it. You can just imagine the scene at a dinner party. It's a sad, strange little picture of the desperate lengths people would go to in order to feel the sensation of eating without the consequence of calories. You find yourself in a constant state of mild starvation. You host a dinner party, preparing a lavish meal for your guests, while you nibble on a single piece of toast. You go out to a speakeasy and sip on a near beer or a diet-friendly concoction, while everyone else enjoys the rich food. There's a hollowness inside you that has nothing to do with the emptiness of your stomach. It's the hollowness of constant self-denial. You are praised for your slender figure. Friends tell you how wonderful you look. You fit into the fashionable straight-line dresses. By all external measures, you are a success. And sometimes, even with all the dieting, your body stubbornly refuses to conform completely. The scale doesn't budge. The boyish silhouette remains just out of reach. And for those moments of desperation, a new and more dangerous solution is being whispered about. A shortcut to slimness, available for a price at your local pharmacy. A little pill that promises to do the work your willpower can't. The promise of a magic pill is intoxicating. The idea that you could bypass the misery of the grapefruit diet and simply swallow your way to a svelte figure is the answer to a prayer you didn't even know you were offering. You start seeing discreet advertisements in the back pages of magazines, tucked between ads for phonograph needles and correspondence courses. They promise fat-reducing miracles, often using vague, pseudo-scientific language about glandular balance and metabolic harmony. You walk into a pharmacy, a place that feels modern and sterile, a temple of science. You approach the counter, perhaps a little nervously, and ask for one of these new diet remedies. The pharmacist might slide a small, unassuming bottle across the counter. No prescription needed. These are the Wild West days of the pharmaceutical industry, long before agencies like the FDA had any real power to regulate the safety or efficacy of what was being sold. Essentially, anyone could mix a few chemicals, bottle it, and sell it as a cure. And inside many of these little bottles is a powerful and dangerous ingredient: thyroid extract. The thyroid gland, located in your neck, produces hormones that regulate your metabolism. The logic, at least on the surface, seemed plausible. If you have a slow metabolism, taking more thyroid hormone should speed it up, causing you to burn calories faster. And it worked. Women who took these pills did lose weight, often rapidly. They felt energetic, jittery, their hearts racing. But you are, in effect, giving yourself a case of hypothyroidism, a serious medical condition. You're replaying with the delicate engine of your body, cranking it up to a dangerous speed. The side effects begin to creep in. Your heart flutters and pounds in your chest. Even when you're sitting still, you feel anxious, irritable, and on edge all the time. Your hands have a slight, persistent tremor. You can't sleep properly, lying awake for hours with a racing mind. Historical medical journals from the 1920s and 30s document cases of thyroid poisoning linked to these, but the public remained largely unaware of the risks. It's a point of debate among medical historians just how many women suffered from these side effects without ever connecting them to the little pills they were taking. They might have been diagnosed with nerves or hysteria, common catch-all terms for women's health issues at the time, while the real culprit sat in their medicine cabinet. Beyond thyroid extract, the contents of these pills were chemical atomic. Yes, the classic poison. In small doses, it was believed to stimulate the appetite and improve the complexion. A holdover from Victorian-era health wafers. Of course, it was also a cumulative poison that could lead to a host of horrifying health problems over time. A chemical used in munitions manufacturing that was discovered to cause rapid weight loss by literally making the body cells less efficient, causing them to burn more energy as heat. It was incredibly effective, but also incredibly deadly. A slight overdose could cook a person from the inside out. One of the strangest and most tragic ingredients found in some of these concoctions was the tapeworm. Or more accurately, the promise of one. Ads would circulate, mostly through word of mouth and shady mail order catalogs, for sanitized tapeworm eggs encapsulated in a pill. The idea was that you would swallow the pill. The worm would hatch and live in your intestines, and you could then eat for 2 while staying thin. Once you reached your goal weight, you'd take another pill, a strong anti-parasitic, to kill and expel the unwelcome guest. It's the stuff of urban legends, but there is anecdotal and circumstantial evidence to suggest that this was a real, albeit very niche and extremely risky, weight loss strategy. The thought of willingly infecting yourself with a parasite is a stark testament to the desperation the new beauty standard could induce. You take your little pill each morning. You feel the artificial buzz of energy, the frantic thrumming beneath your skin. You ignore the palpitations and the anxiety. You see the number on the scale go down and you feel a sense of triumph. You have conquered your body's natural tendencies. You have achieved the modern look. You are thin. But you've made a dangerous trade. You've swapped the gentle, compressive tyranny of the corset for a chemical tyranny that is silently waging war on your heart, your nerves, and your long-term health. And even with the diet and the pills, there's still the problem of your actual shape. Your flesh may be shrinking, but your bones remain. The quest for the boyish figure requires one more piece of armor. Even if the scale shows the correct number, your mirror might still betray you with the stubborn reality of a curve. A womanly hip, a gentle swell of the bust. These are now imperfections, remnants of an outdated model. And so, you find yourself trading one form of binding for another. You've thrown out the hollow bone corset that created curves, only to adopt a new undergarment designed to do the exact opposite, to flatten, compress, and erase them entirely. You walk into the lingerie department of a big, new department store. It's a landscape of pale pinks and whites, but the architecture of the garments has changed completely. Instead of the intricate, are glass-shaping corsets, you see long, tubular garments made of elasticites fabricant co-util. The saleswoman might present you with a girdle or a corselet. The most popular and severe of these is the Symington flattener, a formidable piece of rubberized elastic that was advertised as the key to the boyform figure. Putting it on is a struggle. It's like wrestling a giant, industrial-strength rubber band. You wriggle and pull, holding your breath as you try to contain your body within its unforgiving confines. The goal is to create a straight line from your armpits to your thighs. It squeezes your hips, flattens your stomach, and most importantly, completely suppresses your bust. Some versions are built in brassiers that are less about lifting and shaping and more about strapping and minimizing. You look in the three-way mirror. Your silhouette is undeniably straighter. The Garkin knee look is now achievable. The drop-waist dresses will finally hang properly. But the sensation is deeply uncomfortable. It's a familiar pressure, but with a new, modern purpose. It's a fascinating and somewhat ironic chapter in the history of fashion, and one that historians love to dissect. Was this new girdle truly a step up from the Victorian corset on the one hand? It allowed for more freedom of movement. You could dance the Charleston in a girdle in a way you never could in a fully boned corset. It was, in that sense, more practical for the active lifestyle of the 1922 woman. But on the other hand, the psychological pressure was arguably more insidious. The old corset celebrated and exaggerated a woman's secondary sexual characteristics. This new garment sought to obliterate them, to press them into a state of prepubescent androgyny. The debate continues: was this a rejection of the male gaze or a new, more punishing form of conformity? One of the more peculiar and now forgotten items in this arsenal of flattening was the bust confine or bandeau. For women who didn't need the full body compression of a girdle, these were simple, tight bands of fabric wrapped around the chest. Think of a modern top, but with the express purpose of making your chest as flat as humanly possible. Some women would even bind their chests with strips of cloth, an athletic tape-like approach to achieving the ideal flat-chested look. In a strange way, a mirror image of the Victorian woman stuffing her corset with padding to create a fuller bosom. In just a decade, the ideal had flipped so completely that women were now binding what their mothers had been desperately trying to enhance. You get used to the feeling of the girdle, the constant, low-grade compression. It becomes a part of your daily uniform, the necessary foundation for the modern look. You wear it under your simple, straight-cut day dresses and your beaded, fringed evening frocks. It's the hidden architecture that makes the whole illusion possible. With your figure disciplined by diet, pills, and elastic, you turn your attention upward. The new sleek body requires a new sleek head to match. The heavy, piled-up hair of the Gibson girl looks absurd atop this new boyish frame. It's top-heavy, fussy, and old-fashioned. A radical change is needed. You've been thinking about it for months, maybe even a year. You've seen actresses in the movies and daring women in the city sporting the new style. It's bold. You take a deep breath, walk past the familiar ladies' hair salon, and step into the distinctly masculine, Thailand leather world of a barbershop. You're about to make the most dramatic statement of all. You push open the door to the barbershop, and a wave of unfamiliar smells hits you: bay rum, talcum powder, leather, and cigar smoke. A few men, sitting in the heavy chairs with their faces half covered in shaving cream, turn to stare. The barber, a man in a crisp white coat, pauses with a straight razor in his hand. For a respectable woman to enter a barbershop is, in itself, a small scandal. This is a male sanctuary, and your presence is an intrusion. But you're not the first. In the past year, barbers have found themselves with a surprising new clientele. Women, tired of the slow and gentle work of ladies' hairdressers, are coming to them for a quick, sharp, and decisive cut. You take a seat, your heart pounding a little. The barber drapes the cloth around your shoulders. You look at your reflection, at the long hair you've spent your entire life cultivating, brushing 100 strokes a night, pinning and twisting into submission. It feels like a part of your identity. The bob, you say, your voice may be a little quieter than you intended. There isn't just one bob. There's the Dutch boy with its sharp, straight bangs. There's the eating crop, the most extreme version, slicked back and almost indistinguishable from a man's haircut. There's the shingle, which is tapered and layered in the back, hugging the nape of your neck. The barber might show you a few pictures, or you might have one clipped from a magazine, probably of the silent film star Colleen Moore or Louise Brooks, who popularized the iconic, sharp banged helmet look. You nod, and the barber picks up his scissors. The first snip is the most shocking. A long lock of your hair, a piece of your past, falls silently to the floor. Then another and another. It's a surprisingly quick process. In a matter of minutes, a lifetime of hair is gone. The feeling is one of astonishing lightness. A breeze from the door hits the back of your neck, a sensation you've never felt before. You shake your head, and for the first time, your hair moves with you, a single, sleek unit. It feels alive. The social fallout is immediate. Your mother might be horrified, weeping that you've ruined your femininity. Your father might grumble that you look like a Bolshevik. Clergymen preach from the pulpit against the unnatural and immoral trend of short hair on women. Schools and offices fire female employees who dare to bob their hair. It's seen as a sign of rebellion, of loose morals, of a rejection of traditional womanhood. And that, of course, is precisely the point, undeniable declaration of your modernity. You can hide a girdle, you can lie about your diet, but you cannot hide a bob. This is where historical interpretation gets interesting. Was the barber purely aesthetic choice, a fashion that simply complemented the new, streamlined clothes, or was it a deeply political act? Many historians argue for the latter. For a woman to cut her hair was to sever ties with the 19th century ideal of the angel in the house. Long hair was symbolic of dependence, of time spent on domestic primping. Short hair was for the new active woman. It was practical. It fit under the popular cloche hat. It didn't get caught in the machinery of a factory or automobile. It was a haircut for a woman who was going places. A forgotten and rather amusing side effect of the bobbing craze was the boom in the wig-making and hair goods industry. Many women, either because of familial pressure or workplace rules, couldn't commit to the cut. So they would buy bobbed wigs to wear out to parties and speak as IS. Conversely, women who had cut their hair might keep a switch a long braid of their own shorn hair or buy one, which they could pin back on to appear more conservative for a family gathering or a job interview. It led to a curious situation where you could never be quite sure if a woman's hair, long or short, was entirely her own. You leave the barbershop feeling like a new person. The world looks different, sharper. You feel bolder, more confident. Your head is light, your neck is free. You have shed the final, most personal vestige of the old world. You look in a shop window at your reflection, the boyish figure, the straight-line dress, and now, the sleek short hair. The external transformation is complete. Now, it's time to work on the face. The new ideal requires a face that is as deliberately and artificially constructed as the body beneath it. It's time to paint. You now approach your dressing table, which is beginning to look less like your mother's and more like a painter's workshop. The old ideal of female beauty was about appearing natural, as if your rosy cheeks and bright eyes were simply a gift from God. The use of cosmetics was discreet, often hidden, associated with actresses and prostitutes. A respectable woman might pinch her cheeks for color, or bite her lips for a bit of a stain, but she would never admit to using rouge or lipstick. That world is gone. The 1922 embraces artifice. The new face is a mask, a deliberate and stylized creation. And for the first time, cosmetics are being mass-produced and mass-marketed to women of all classes. Brands like Max Factor, Helena Rubinstein, and a new company called Maybelline are placing ads in all the magazines. Going to the cosmetics counter at Woolworths or a department store becomes a new, exciting ritual. The sheer variety of products is dazzling and a little overwhelming. The foundation of the new face is a layer of stark white powder. You pat it on generously, aiming for a pale, almost ghostly complexion. This wasn't about looking healthy, it was about creating a blank canvas symbol. A tan, at the very beginning of the decade, was still associated with the working class. People who had to labor outdoors. A pale face meant you belonged to the leisured class. So you powder your face, your neck, even your shoulders, creating a uniform, matte white surface. Next comes the rouge. But you don't apply it to the apples of your cheeks for a healthy, girlish flush. That's what your mother did. The fashionable flapper applies her rouge in a bold, circular patch, often lower down on the cheek. It's not meant to look natural. It's meant to look like rouge. It's a statement. The colors are vibrant pinks, reds, and the newly fashionable orange tones. You apply it with a puff, a bold stamp of color on your pale face. The look is heavily influenced by the silent movies. On the black and white screen, subtlety was lost. Actors needed heavy, dramatic makeup for their features to be visible to the audience. Stars like Clara Bow, the original It Girl, and Gloria Swanson, with her dramatic, expressive face, became the beauty icons of the age. Women left the movie palaces and tried to replicate those faces in their own mirrors. Historians often point to this as a major turning point in consumer culture. The film industry didn't just sell movie tickets, it's older lifestyle. It's old-fashioned, it's old hairstyles. And most of all, it's old a new face. The link between celebrity and consumer products became forged in this decade. Before, you might have wanted to look like a society portrait. Now, you wanted to look like a movie star. The debate here is whether this was empowering, giving women new tools for self-expression, or if it just created a new, commercially driven set of anxieties and standards to live up to. A strange and now forgotten cosmetic fad from this era was the obsession with creating a moon-like glow. This went beyond just products that promised a luminous or opalescent finish. Some powders contained finely ground fish scales specifically, wanting to give the skin a silvery sheen, an effect that would have been particularly striking under the dim, atmospheric lighting of a speakeasy or a dance hall. It was about creating a face that looked ethereal, otherworldly, and a little bit haunting. You stand back and look at your work so far. The pale face, the bold circles of rouge. It's a start, but the most important features are yet to be drawn. The focus of the 1920s face was on the eyes and the mouth. They were not to be enhanced, but to be completely reshaped, drawn on like a character in a cartoon. You pick up a small, dark red pot of color. It's time to create the most distinctive and artificial feature of the flapper face, the tiny, perfect, heart-shaped mouth. You lean in close to the mirror, your face a pale canvas. The goal now is to completely ignore the natural line of your own lips. The fashionable mouth of the 1920s is small, dark, and pouty. It's called the Cupid's bow, or sometimes the bee-stung look. It's a mouth that looks perpetually surprised, or perhaps perpetually ready to be kissed. It's the mouth of a doll, not a real person. The process is meticulous. First, you use your white face powder to conceal the outer corners of your natural lips, effectively erasing them. You are literally shrinking the perceived size of your mouth. Then you take your lip color. Lipstick as we know it, in a twist-up metal tube, was a new and exciting invention, made popular by brands like Maurice Levy. Before this, lip color often came in a pot or on a palette and had to be applied with a brush. You take your brush or the tip of your dark red or deep maroon lipstick and begin to draw. You create an exaggerated, sharp peak on your upper lip, the bow of the Cupid's bow. You then curve the line down, but you stop well short of the actual corners of your mouth. The lower lip is painted as a full, rounded curve. But again, it's kept small and contained, not extending to the full width of your mouth. The effect is dramatic. When you close your mouth, it looks like a perfect, tiny heart shape painted onto the center of your face. It's a key part of the doll-like, almost infantilized look that was so popular. This very specific mouth shape was popularized by silent film stars, most notably Clara Bow. Her Cupid's bow was her trademark. In the black and white films, this dark, sharply defined mouth stood out, conveying a range of emotions from playful innocence to sultry allure without a single word. Women would buy magazines that came with stencils, little cutouts you could hold over your mouth to help you trace the perfect shape. It was a paint-by-numbers approach to beauty. The historical debate around the Cupid's bow mouth is fascinating. Some scholars see it as a symbol of the era's infantilization of women, reducing them to cute, doll-like objects even as they were making strides in political and social spheres. The mouth is too small to look assertive, too pouty to look serious. It's a playful, non-threatening feature, Others argue that it was a form of artistic expression, a deliberate and playful rejection of naturalism. The flapper wasn't trying to be a doll, she was consciously creating a stylized, artistic persona, and the Cupid's bow was a key brushstroke in that self-portrait. One of the lesser-known, and frankly quite unappealing, aspects of this trend was the taste and texture of the lipsticks themselves. Early lipsticks were often made from a mixture of crushed insect carmine for the red color, beeswax, and castor oil. The formulas were waxy, heavy, and often had a distinct, slightly rancid taste. The long-lasting formulas of today were a distant dream. The color would transfer onto everything: cups, napkins, and of course, the collars and cheeks of dance partners. This led to the popularization of small, ornate lip compacts or dance purses, which a woman would carry to reapply her lipstick frequently throughout an evening. A perfect Cupid's bow required constant, vigilant maintenance. You blot your freshly painted lips on a piece of tissue. The shape is perfect. It feels strange to smile. The painted shape fights with the real one. But it's not a face made for broad-toothy grins. It's a face for a sly smile, a pout, a look of sophisticated ennui. Your face is almost complete. The pale skin, the circles of rouge, the tiny, heart-shaped mouth. But the canvas is still missing its darkest, most dramatic element. You look at your eyes. They need to be transformed from simple organs of sight into pools of dark, smoky mystery. It's time to channel another silent film archetype, one found film archetype, one far more dangerous and worldly than the playful girl. It's time to create the eyes of a vamp. The vamp, short for vampire, was a new kind of female archetype, born on the silver screen. She was the polar opposite of the wholesome girl next door. The vamp was exotic, dangerous, and alluringly predatory. The original vamp was the actress Tho-Radia, who, in the late no vamp was the actress Tho-Radia who, in heavily made 10 seconds, that her fame had peaked by the 1920 seconds. The look she created became the essential template for the dramatic flapper evening eye. This is not a subtle look. This is about creating deep, dark hollows that make your eyes look enormous and mysterious in the dim, flickering light of a jazz club. It's a dark, greasy pigment that comes in a small pot. The very word kohl sounds ancient and exotic, and that's part of the appeal. It has been used for millennia in the Middle East and Egypt, and its adoption by the flappers was part of a larger trend of Orientalist, a fascination with the aesthetics of faraway, exotic cultures. You take a small brush or even just your fingertip and apply the kohl liberally all around your lash line, top and bottom. You smudge it outwards, creating a smoky, undefined halo of black around your entire eye. There are no sharp lines here, no neat cat-eye lived-in look. It's a bruised, shadowy, lived-in look. You want to look like you've been up all night, dancing, drinking, and breaking hearts. Next comes the eyeshadow. The colors are dark and pearlescent, deep grays, blues, purples, and greens. You apply it over the kohl from your lash line all the way up to your eyebrow, blending the color so it's darkest at the lashes and fades as it goes up. Your whole eyelid becomes a canvas of smoky color. Then the eyebrows. The thick, natural brows of the pre-war era are gone. The new ideal is a thin, severe, and dramatically arched brow, plucked into submission and then drawn back on with a dark pencil, often extending far beyond its natural endpoint. The brow is drawn downwards at the end, giving the face a perpetually melancholy, pensive expression. It's a look of curated sadness, of sophisticated world weariness. Finally, you address your eyelashes. You might use an eyelash curler, a strange-looking metal contraption that was just starting to become popular. Then you apply mascara. A brand new product from a company called Maybelline is all the rage. It comes in a cake form with a tiny brush. You have to spit on the cake or add a drop of water to create a paste, which you then carefully paint onto your lashes. It's a messy, slightly unhygienic process, but the result is darker, thicker lashes. The debate among historians of cosmetics centers on intent. Was this heavy, dark eye makeup an attempt to look more sexually alluring, undebatable? A classic come-hither look, or was it a form of armor, a mask that hid the wearer's true feelings, a face painted with such a dramatic, sad, and slightly intimidating expression might have been a way for a young woman to navigate the sometimes aggressive social world of speak as I is in dance halls. A way of saying, look, but don't mess with me. It's likely a bit of both. One of the more bizarre and forgotten beauty tips for achieving dramatic eyes involved, of all things, petroleum jelly. Before the widespread availability of shimmery eyeshadows, women were advised to put a thin layer of Vaseline over their eyelids after applying their dark coral shadow. This created a glossy, wet look that would catch the light. It was sticky, it would crease horribly within minutes, and it probably wasn't very comfortable, but for a few fleeting moments, it gave the eyes an extra dimension of shine and drama. It's a far cry from the long-wearing, crease-proof formulas we have today. You gaze at your reflection. The transformation is startling. Your own eyes stare back at you from within to dark, smoky sockets. Combined with the pale skin, the drawn-on brows, and the Cupid's bow mouth, it's a carefully constructed work of art, a mask of modernity. But there is one final, secret touch, a step that separates the merely fashionable from the truly daring. It's a beauty secret whispered from woman to woman, a trick that promises to give your eyes a depth and sulfurance that no amount of kohl can replicate. It's also the single most dangerous thing you will do in your entire beauty routine. The final touch comes in a small vial, obtainable from a pharmacist who is willing to look the other way. It's a clear liquid, and its name sounds deceptively beautiful: belladonna. It means beautiful lady in Italian, a name it earned during the Renaissance when Venetian noble women used it for this exact same purpose. But the plant from which it is derived has a much more sinister name: Atropa belladonna, commonly known as deadly nightshade. You know it's risky. There are whispers, warnings, but the promise is so alluring. The magazine's unbeauty columns talk about achieving the doe-eyed look, a wide-eyed, soulful gaze that is meant to look innocent and captivating. Belladonna is the shortcut. It's an alkaloid tincture, and when you apply a drop to each eye, it forces the iris to relax completely, causing your pupils to dilate to an enormous, unnatural size. The ritual is almost clinical. You tilt your head back, hold the tiny dropper over your eye and squeeze. The drop is cold, and it stings for a moment. You blink, and the world swims slightly. You do the other eye. You wait a few minutes, looking in the mirror. The change is incredible. The cutted part of your eye, the iris, shrinks to a thin, barely there ring. The rest is a vast, black pool of pupil. Set against your pale skin and your dark, kohl-rimmed lids, the effect is mesmerizing. Your eyes look huge, deep, and luminous. They seem to drink in the light. It's the look of a startled deer, of a silent film heroine in a moment of high emotion. It gives your carefully painted face a touch of vulnerability, a hint of life behind the mask. This is the secret ingredient that makes the whole look pop. The use of belladonna for cosmetic purposes is a practice that has ebbed and flowed in popularity for centuries, but it saw a major resurgence in the 1920s. It fit perfectly with the era's embrace of artifice and its high-risk, high-reward mentality. This practice sits at a fascinating intersection of history, chemistry, and beauty standards, a place where the desire for a specific aesthetic leads people to knowingly use a known poison. Historians are still uncertain just how widespread this practice was. It was never openly advertised in mainstream magazines in the way lipstick or powder was. It was part of a semi-secret, word-of-mouth beauty culture. Was it something only a daring few did for wild parties, or was it a more common trick used by average women to feel more glamorous for a special night out? The evidence is scattered in medical case studies, cautionary tales in pulp magazines, and anecdotal accounts. It remains one of the darker, more mysterious corners of the flapper's beauty regimen. One of the strangest things about the belladonna trend is how it coexisted with a completely opposite desire for the squinting look when outdoors. The actress Greta Garbo, a massive star in the later 1920s, was famous for being photographed outdoors, squinting into the distance with a look of chic nonchalance. Women would imitate this, deliberately squinting in photographs to look sophisticated and mysterious. So you have this bizarre dichotomy indoors. In the evening, the goal is wide, dilated, doe-eyed innocence. Outdoors in the daytime, the goal is a worldly, sophisticated squint. It's a perfect example of how contradictory and context-dependent beauty standards can be. You admire your huge, dark pupils in the mirror. You have achieved the ultimate 1920 seconds eye. You look soulful, mysterious, and captivating. You are ready for the party, but as you turn away from the mirror, you notice something is wrong. The familiar objects in your room, the lampshade, the perfume bottle, the frame of the mirror itself, are no longer sharp. They have soft, blurry edges haloed in a faint haze. The world, which was so sharp and clear just a few minutes ago, has dissolved into a beautiful, but deeply disorienting blur. You blink a few times trying to clear your vision, but the blurriness remains. In fact, it might even be getting worse. This is the immediate and unavoidable side effect of the belladonna. By forcing your pupils wide open, you've essentially disabled your eye's ability to focus. It's like opening the aperture on a camera all the way you can let in a lot of light, but you can't bring anything into sharp relief. Reading the label on a bottle or the headlines on a newspaper becomes an impossible task. The words swim together into an incomprehensible gray smudge. You ought to go out, but navigating the world has suddenly become a treacherous undertaking. The edge of a carpet, the leg of a chair, the top step of a staircase, all of these mundane objects are now blurry, indistinct hazards. You find yourself reaching out to touch things, to confirm their location in space before you move. And then there's the light. Your dilated pupils are taking in a massive, uncontrolled amount of light. The soft glow of the lamp in your bedroom is now uncomfortably bright. Walking into a fully lit room feels like staring into a searchlight. You squint, your eyes watering, but it does little to help. Your eyes have lost their natural defense against brightness. The thought of stepping outside into the daylight is unthinkable. Belladonna beauty is strictly a nocturnal affair. The world becomes a series of vague shapes and dazzling glares. At the party, the flickering candles and electric lamps create brilliant, starburst halos. The faces of your friends across the room are soft focus portraits. You can see their general shape but not their specific expression. It creates a strange, dreamlike quality, as if you're moving through an impressionist painting. You might feel a strange sense of detachment, a beautiful but isolating barrier between you and the rest of the world. Medical experts at the time were well aware of the dangers, even if the general public was not. They warned that repeated, long-term use of belladonna could lead to much more serious problems. The drug works by paralyzing the muscles of the iris, and constant use could lead to permanent damage. More frighteningly, it could cause a dangerous increase in intraocular pressure. For individuals predisposed to it, this could trigger an attack of acute glaucoma, a condition that can lead to irreversible optic nerve damage and, in a worst-case scenario, complete blindness. The historical record on this is chilling but sparse. How many women suffered from chronic headaches, light sensitivity, or deteriorating vision without ever connecting it to their cosmetic routine? How many were diagnosed with eye strain or other vague maladies, when the real cause was the little vial of eye brightener on their vanity? This remains a point of scholarly investigation, piecing together clues from old medical journals and optometry records. It's a hidden history of harm, overshadowed by the glamour of the era. A particularly cruel irony of the belladonna fad was its effect on social interaction. The entire point of the doe-eyed look was to be more attractive and engaging, to draw people in with a soulful, captivating gaze. But the reality for the user was often the opposite. Unable to focus clearly on the person they were talking to, a woman using belladonna might appear distracted, unfocused, or even aloof. She might struggle to recognize faces from a distance or to pick up on subtle social cues conveyed by facial expressions. The very tool she used to feel more beautiful and connected could, in practice, make her feel more isolated and disoriented. You stumble slightly on your way out the door, misjudging the distance to the floor. You navigate the evening with a newfound, cautious grace, relying on your memory of spaces and the guiding arm of a friend. You smile, you laugh, you dance. From across the room, you are a vision of 1920 seconds glamour. Your eyes wide and dark are mesmerizing. No one knows that you are looking at them through a beautiful, dangerous, self-inflicted haze. They don't know that you've traded the clarity of your vision for a fleeting, fashionable ideal. And as you peer into the blurry, glittering night, you are blissfully unaware that in some of the most chic and modern beauty salons, an even more insidious poison is being packaged, promising not just beauty, but a radiant, healthy glow from within. The new magic word is radium. It's on everyone's lips. You see it in the newspapers, you hear about it on the radio. Discovered by Marie and Pierre Curie just a couple of decades ago, radium is hailed as one of the greatest scientific breakthroughs in history. It's a miracle element. It seems to possess an endless supply of energy. And in the giddy, science-obsessed atmosphere of the 1920s, this mysterious, powerful new substance is quickly elevated from a laboratory curiosity to a cure-all, a source of vitality and health. The logic, as it was presented to the public, was simple and seductive. Radium contains energy. Life is energy. Therefore, radium must be good for you. It was seen as a way to charge your body's human battery. This led to a full-blown radium craze, a period where radioactive products were marketed with the same breathless enthusiasm as vitamins are today. You could buy radium-laced water, sold under names like Roddy Thor. The advertisements promised it would cure everything from arthritis to impotence to fatigue. You could buy radium-infused chocolate bars, bread, and toothpaste. There were radium suppositories, radium-laced athletic supporters for men, and even radium pendants you could wear to absorb its healing rays throughout the day. The glow itself was seen as a sign of its power, a visible manifestation of its life-giving properties. Naturally, the beauty industry was quick to jump on this glowing bandwagon. If radium could restore health and vitality to the whole body, imagine what it could do for the skin. The promise was irresistible, a cream or a powder that didn't just cover up imperfections, but actually rejuvenated your skin from within, making it glow with the very essence of life. It was the ultimate scientific cosmetic, a fusion of modern physics and ancient desire for eternal youth. You start seeing advertisements for French cosmetic lines with sophisticated, scientific-sounding names. They talk about cellular stimulation, revitalization, and a curative approach to beauty. This was a clever marketing tactic, positioning these products not as mere makeup, but as a form of therapy, a health treatment for your face. The historical context for this is crucial. The Curies, especially Marie Curie, were global celebrities. Her work was seen as heroic, almost magical. The public had a deep, almost blind faith in science, even if they didn't understand the mechanisms behind it. The word radioactive didn't yet carry the terrifying connotations it does today. It sounded futuristic, powerful, and overwhelmingly positive. Historians studying this period often grapple with the question of blame. Were the manufacturers cynical charlatans knowingly selling poison, or were many of them, like the public, genuinely caught up in the craze, truly believing in the restorative powers of radium? The answer is likely a messy combination of both, ranging from true believers to opportunistic quacks. One of the most bizarre and forgotten products to emerge from the radium craze was the Roddy Endoxinator, a small gold-plated device containing a source of radium. It was designed to be worn at night. Men were instructed to place it in its leather pouch and wear it like a jockstrap, while women were advised to simply place it on any part of the body that needed revitalizing, such as under the chin or over the thyroid gland. Its inventor, a man who was, by all acclaimed, a complete quack with no medical training, claimed it worked by stimulating the endocrine glands with mild, harmless radiation. The device was incredibly expensive, a luxury item for the wealthy, and a testament to the extraordinary power of pseudoscience in the Jazz Age. You are intrigued? The idea of a face cream that could give you a genuine natural glow, not just a powdered-on one, is the holy grail. The belladonna in your eyes makes the world blurry, but this promises to make your skin clearer. The starvation diets leave you feeling weak, but this promises vitality. It feels like the perfect antidote to the punishing aspects of your beauty routine. You save up your money, and one day you walk into a high-end department store, past the lipsticks and rouges, and approach the counter of a new, chic, imported brand. You are about to purchase what is, without a doubt, the most dangerous cosmetic product ever created. You stand at the gleaming glass counter, and the saleswoman presents you with the products as if they are precious jewels. The packaging is exquisite, a masterpiece of Art Deco design. It's a French brand called Tho-Radia. The name itself sounds like a chic, scientific promise, blending the names of two radioactive elements thorium and radium. The line includes a face cream, a powder, a rouge, a lipstick, and a beauty soap. The labels are in French, adding to the allure and authority. They boast of being developed by a Dr. Alfred Curie. This was a stroke of marketing genius. While Dr. Alfred Curie did exist, he had absolutely no relation to Marie and Pierre Curie. But the shared surname was enough to create a powerful, and entirely misleading, association in the public mind. The saleswoman dabs a bit of the cream Tho-Radia on the back of your hand. It feels luxurious, smooth and cool on your skin. She explains its curative properties. The cream, she tells you, contains small, carefully measured amounts of thorium chloride and radium bromide. These elements, she claims, stimulate blood circulation, tone the tissues, firm the muscles, eliminate fats, and smooth away wrinkles. It's not just a cream, it's a veritable rejuvenation of the tissue. The powder will give you a luminous complexion, a glow that comes from deep within your skin. You buy the cream and the powder. They are expensive, a true luxury. Taking them home feels like you've acquired a secret weapon in the quest for beauty. That night, after washing your face, you perform a new ritual. You open the elegant glass jar of the Tho-Radia cream. It doesn't glow in the dark, the amounts of radium were too small for that, but in your mind's eye, it's suffused with a magical, healing energy. You massage the cream into your face and neck, feeling a slight tingle that you interpret as the cellular stimulation at work. Then you pat on the powder, which promises to seal in the benefits and give you that radiant finish. This trend was not limited to France. In England, you could buy Roaru brand cosmetics, which also offered a full range of radium-infused products. Their tagline was "A permanent tonic to the skin." The obsession was just as strong. These were fringe products sold by snake oil salesmen in the back of a wagon. They were high-end, luxury goods, sold in the most respectable department stores and pharmacies. Endorsed by socialites and actresses. The historical debate here is a dark one. Did these creams actually do anything in the short term? Some modern analyses suggest that the low-level radiation might have caused a slight inflammation and increased blood flow to the surface of the skin, which could have temporarily given a rosy, plumped-up appearance. So, in a grimly ironic way, the creams may have appeared to work at first by creating the very cellular damage that would later prove so devastating. It's a haunting thought. The initial proof of the product's effectiveness was, in fact, the first sign of its poison. One of the most chillingly mundane artifacts of this era is the radium dial watch. These watches, with their glow-in-the-dark numbers and hands, became incredibly popular in the 1920s. They were a symbol of modernity and convenience. To make them, young women, who became known as the Radium Girls, were employed in factories to paint the tiny numerals with radium-laced paint. To get a fine point on their brushes, they were instructed to lick the tips, a technique called lip pointing. They were told the radium paint was harmless. They would even paint their teeth and fingernails with it for fun, amusing their friends by glowing in the dark when they got home. The story of the Radium Girls is one of the most tragic chapters of industrial history, a direct and horrifying parallel to the women applying the same poison to their faces in the name of beauty. You go to bed, your face coated in a thin, invisible layer of radioactive poison. You feel chic, modern, unscientific. You believe you are nourishing your skin with the most advanced, life-giving substance known to man. You have no idea that the miracle element you've just lovingly massaged into your face is a silent, cumulative poison. It is embedding itself in your cells, in your tissues, and, most terrifyingly, in your bones. The promised glow is a lie. But the danger is very, very real. In the beginning, you notice nothing but what you perceive as positive effects. Your skin might seem a little flushed, a little more alive. You attribute this to the curative properties of your expensive new cream. You recommend it to your friends. You feel like you're on the cutting edge of beauty and science. The damage that's being done is happening on a microscopic level, completely silent, invisible. The radium and thorium you're applying to your skin are alpha particle emitters. While alpha radiation has a very short range and can't penetrate intact skin very effectively, the problem arises from the product itself. The cream is a vehicle, allowing these radioactive elements to be absorbed through pores, or small cuts and abrasions, and once inside your body, they begin their devastating work. Your body mistakes radium for calcium. It's a chemical trick. Because at its place on the periodic table, radium is chemically similar to calcium, a key building block for bone. So when radium enters your bloodstream, your body doesn't recognize it as a foreign poison. Instead, it dutifully deposits the radium into your bones, just as it would with calcium. There it will remain for the rest of your life, steadily emitting radiation from the inside out, irradiating the very marrow of your bones. The first person to truly bring the horror of radium poisoning to public attention was not a user of cosmetics, but a wealthy American industrialist named Eben Byers. He was an avid user of Radithor, the certified radioactive water we talked about earlier. He drank several bottles a day for years, convinced it was improving his health. In the early 1930s, he began to suffer from excruciating pain in his jaw. His teeth fell out. His jawbone literally began to disintegrate and crumble away, which became known as radium jaw, was horrifically painful and disfiguring. When he died, his body was so radioactive it had to be buried in a lead-lined coffin. His gruesome, high-profile death was the catalyst that finally began to turn public opinion against the radium craze. For the women using the cosmetics, the effects were more subtle, and perhaps even more insidious. The low-level, long-term exposure from the creams wouldn't necessarily lead to the dramatic and swift decay seen in Byers' case. Instead, it would be a slow, creeping poison. Years or even decades later, a woman who had been a faithful user of Tho-Radia might develop inexplicable health problems, anemia, bone fractures that wouldn't heal properly, and most terrifyingly, cancers, bone cancers, skin cancer, leukemia. The question of how many women were ultimately harmed or killed by these radioactive cosmetics is a ghost that haunts the history of the beauty industry. The causal link would have been almost impossible to prove at the time. A woman developing cancer in the 1940s would have no reason to connect it to the fancy French face cream she used in her youth. It's a historical cold case, with the victims remaining largely anonymous and the full extent of the tragedy unknown. Historians can only speculate based on the known science of radiation and the anecdotal evidence that has survived. One of the most poignant and dark details to emerge from the study of the Radium Girls, the watch dial painters, is the way they were initially dismissed by their employers. When the young women began to complain of toothaches, jaw pain, and anemia, the company doctors diagnosed them with syphilis and other diseases, attempting to blame their health problems on their own supposed moral failings. It was a classic case of victim blaming, a way to deflect responsibility for the industrial poisoning that was taking place. This public denial and gaslighting created a climate where it was very difficult for the women to find justice, and it's a chilling reminder of how the users of radioactive cosmetics would have faced a similar wall of disbelief and dismissal. You continue your nightly ritual, smoothing the poison onto your face, believing it's a luxurious source of youth. You have starved your body to fit a boyish ideal, blurred your vision for a wide-eyed look, and now you are irradiating your bones for a radiant glow. The pursuit of the flapper ideal has become a minefield of hidden dangers. But there is one more harmless habit, one more fashionable accessory that is being marketed to you as the epitome of modernity, and it's a wonderful way to suppress your appetite. The final accessory in your new persona isn't something you wear, it's something you do. You learn to hold a cigarette. It feels strange in your fingers at first, a small white paper tip that holds an immense weight of social taboo. For your mother's generations before her, a woman smoking in public was an unambiguous sign. It meant she was an actress, a bohemian, or a prostitute. It was simply not something a lady did. But you are not a lady. You are a modern woman, and in the rebellious spirit of the 1920s, every male privilege is a fortress to be stormed. Voting, driving, working, and now, smoking. You watch the men. They smoke with an easy confidence, as if it's their birthright. You decide to claim that right for yourself. The first time you light a cigarette in a cafe or on a city street, you feel the stares. It's a small act of public defiance, but it feels significant. Each puff of smoke you exhale is a visible rejection of the old rules. It's a gesture that says, I am not confined by your expectations. It becomes part of the flapper uniform, as essential as the bobbed hair or the short skirt. It's a prop in the performance, a punctuation mark in the conversation. And then you discover its secret, magical property. It dulls the appetite. That constant, gnawing hunger from your 18-day grapefruit diet, the emptiness you feel in the late afternoon, a cigarette can take the edge off. A plume of smoke can feel more satisfying than a piece of cake. It's a bitter, chemical trick, but an effective one. The habit quickly becomes entwined with the obsession for thinness. It's the perfect companion to the starvation diet. Craving something sweet, light a cigarette instead. The tobacco companies, masters of a new, persuasive form of advertising, noticed this trend immediately. They had a massive, untapped market right in front of them, women. But they had to be careful. They couldn't just come out and say smoking is for ladies now. They had to associate the habit with the glamorous ideals of the era. They began running ads featuring beautiful, slender, sophisticated women. The text wouldn't mention appetite suppression directly. That was still too unseemly. They used clever, coded language. This is where you first see some of the most famous advertising campaigns in history take root. It's also where historians and cultural critics have debated for decades. Was the flapper's embrace of smoking a genuine act of feminist liberation, a co-opting of male power, or were these women simply the first and most successful targets of a cynical and brilliant marketing strategy by Big Tobacco, which saw a golden opportunity to hook a new generation on a deadly product? The truth, as is often the case, is a complex mix. The desire for rebellion was real, but the advertising industry was there to channel that desire directly toward a commercial product. To make the act of smoking more feminine and elegant, a whole new category of accessories appears. The cigarette holder becomes a must-have item. You might have one made of ivory, ebony, or the new miracle plastic bakelite. They come in varying lengths, some absurdly long, looking like a conductor's baton for a symphony of smoke. The holder serves a practical purpose beyond just style. It keeps the yellow nicotine stains off your fingers and teeth, which would ruin your carefully cultivated pale look. It also keeps the smoke away from your eyes, so your comb and mascara don't run. A very niche and now forgotten concern was smoker's face. The fear that pursing your lips to puff on a cigarette would give you premature wrinkles around the mouth and doing the work of your expensive radium creams. The holder helped to minimize this. You also need a case. A simple paper pack of cigarettes is too plain. You have a slim, elegant cigarette case made of silver or enameled metal, which you snap open with a flourish. Your lighter might be an equally ornate affair. These objects become part of your public persona, items of fashion that signal your sophistication and modernity. Use it at a table in a speakeasy, the illegal gin tasting sharp in your cup. The jazz is loud, the air is thick with smoke. You pull out your silver case, select a cigarette, and fit it into your long black holder. Someone leans in to light it for you. You inhale, the smoke filling your lungs. You feel chic, rebellious, and thankfully, a little less hungry. It's the perfect modern ritual. You are unaware that the embers at the end of that little white stick are burning away your future health. One stylish puff at a time, the message starts to become more explicit, more targeted. You see an advertisement in a glossy magazine. It features a beautiful, slender woman looking wistfully at a plate of dessert. Another, slightly heavier set version of her lurks in the background, a shadowy representation of her former, less fashionable self. The slogan is bold and direct: reach for a lucky instead of a sweet. This campaign, launched by the American Tobacco Company for their Lucky Strike brand in 1928, is a landmark moment. It is one of the first times a major company has so openly and successfully linked their product to female weight control. It's a brilliant and deeply cynical piece of marketing. It takes the private whisper network, the secret that smoking helps you stay thin, and broadcasts it to the entire nation as a legitimate, even glamorous, lifestyle choice. The ads are everywhere. They feature famous opera singers, actresses, and socialites, all testifying that Luck-Ies protect their delicate throats from irritation. The implication is that if these professional vocalists can smoke them, they must be mild. Another series of ads uses the tagline, "It's toasted," a phrase that means absolutely nothing from a health perspective but sounds clean, modern, and less harmful than more tobacco. You and your friends talk about it. Have you tried a Lucky? They say it's better for your voice. The brand becomes associated with modernity and, most importantly, with slimness. The campaign is a massive success. Lucky Strike's market share skyrockets, and a huge portion of that growth comes from new female smokers. You have now been given official permission, even encouragement, from the culture to use a known addictive substance as a diet tool. The historical debate around this campaign is intense. It's often cited as a textbook example of manipulative advertising. It identified a pre-existing female anxiety, the pressure to be thin, and then presented a product as the solution. It medicalized the message with testimonials from doctors who were, of course, paid to claim that Luck-Ies were less irritating. Was it the campaign that created the link between smoking and thinness? Or did it simply capitalize on a link that was already there? Most scholars agree it was the latter, but that the campaign legitimized and amplified the connection to a terrifying degree, hooking millions of women in the process. To further appeal to the female market, other tobacco companies begin to experiment with their packaging and products. Philip Morris launches a brand called Marlboro, which, in its first incarnation, is explicitly marketed as a mild-as-May cigarette for women. It even features a red beauty tip to hide lipstick stains, a small innovation that proved very popular. The ads show delicate, feminine hands holding the cigarette. It's a far cry from the rugged Marlboro Man cowboy imagery that would be introduced decades later to completely rebrand the product for men. A less successful, and frankly quite strange, marketing attempt was the creation of perfumed cigarettes. Some smaller brands offered cigarettes lightly scented with floral or exotic notes, hoping to appeal to a woman's sense of smell and make the habit seem more delicate and less dirty. The idea never really caught on in a big way, as most smokers, it turned out, preferred the taste of actual tobacco. But it shows the lengths to which companies were willing to go to break into the lucrative female market. You carry your pack of Luck-Ies or your Marlboros in your purse. You offer them to friends. The act of smoking has been fully integrated into your social life. It's what you do when you're on the phone, when you're having coffee, when you're driving your car. You reach for a Lucky after a meal, not because you crave the nicotine, not yet, anyway, but because you've been told it's the sophisticated, modern, and slender thing to do. You are now a walking, breathing embodiment of the 1920 seconds ideal. Your figure is straight and boyish, achieved through a combination of starvation, elastic, and now nicotine. Your face is a perfect, painted mask with huge, blurry eyes. Your hair is a sleek, modern bob. You move through the world with a cloud of smoke and a trail of chic perfume. You are a masterpiece of artifice. But there is one last, surprising aesthetic shift to come. Just as you've perfected your ghostly pale complexion, the rules are about to change once again. A new status symbol is on the horizon, one that comes not from a bottle or a box, but from the sun itself. For centuries, the rule has been absolute: pale skin is beautiful. It is the single most important signifier of class and status. A porcelain complexion means you do not labor in the fields. It means you are a person of leisure, a lady who spends her days indoors, shielded from the harsh, browning rays of the sun. You've gone to great lengths to maintain this paleness, using powders, creams, and carrying parasols on sunny day. But in the mid-1920 seconds, a subtle shift begins. You start to see photographs in magazines of wealthy, fashionable people not in drawing rooms, but on the sunny beaches of the French Riviera. They are lounging on the sand, swimming in the sea, sailing on yachts. And their skin is not pale, it is kissed by the sun. The trend is oft uncredited to one person, Coco Chanel. The story, which may be partly apocryphal but is powerful nonetheless, goes that in 1923, Chanel returned from a holiday on the Riviera with a deep, golden tan. She was a trendsetter, a titan of fashion, and when she appeared in Paris looking bronzed and healthy, society took notice. Suddenly, a tan was not a mark of the laborer, but a sign of a new kind of wealth. It meant you had the money and the leisure time to travel to exotic, sunny destinations. It meant you could afford to play, not just to work. The status symbol had completely inverted. This new ideal of a healthy, sun-kissed glow aligns perfectly with the burgeoning obsession with athleticism and the outdoors. The boyish figure is the figure of a girl who plays tennis, who swims, who drives a convertible with the top down. 18 becomes the natural accessory to this active, modern lifestyle, so you find yourself tentatively embracing the sun. You put away your parasol. You buy one of the new, more revealing swimsuits, often a simple, one-piece wool tank suit that would seem incredibly cumbersome today, but is shockingly liberating compared to the full-skirted, multi-layered bathing costumes of the past. You lie on a beach or on a rooftop, deliberately exposing your skin to the sun. Of course, this is long before the dangers of UV radiation are understood. There is no such thing as sunscreen. In fact, women often do the opposite. They slather themselves in oils like baby oil or olive oil to enhance the sun's effects, to fry their skin to a fashionable golden brown as quickly as possible. You lie there feeling the heat on your skin, and hope that you are tanning, not just burning. The historical significance of this shift is profound. It represents a fundamental change in the Western world's relationship with the body, nature, and class. The ideal body is no longer a fragile, delicate thing to be protected from the elements, but a robust, athletic machine to be honed and displayed. Historians debate whether this was a genuinely healthier ideal or just a new aesthetic pressure. While it encouraged outdoor activity, it also introduced the now familiar dangers of sun exposure, laying the groundwork for future generations' battles with skin cancer. A quirky and little-known side effect of the new tanning craze was the boom in sun ray clinics. For those who couldn't afford a trip to the Riviera, or for city dwellers in the cloudy winter months, these clinics offered an artificial alternative. You could go into a room, put on some dark goggles, and stand in front of a powerful sun lamp, which blasted you with ultraviolet radiation. These were marketed as health treatments, promising not just a tan but also the benefits of artificial sunlight, which was believed to kill germs and provide essential vitamins. The long-term risks of this concentrated UV exposure were, of course, completely unknown. You look at your skin in the mirror. Where you once saw a desirable paleness, you now see a pasty-looking canvas. You eagerly watch as a faint tan line appears on your shoulders. You've traded your radium-laced powder for a bottle of tanning oil. The ghost white, doll-like face is on its way out. The new look is one of sun-drenched, athletic, active, energetic clothes. The way you move is about to change fashion once again. The soundtrack of your nights is just fast, syncopated, and electrifying. And the dance that goes with it is the Charleston. It's not the graceful waltz of your parents' generation. The Charleston is wild, energetic, and a little bit goofy. It's all kicking legs, flailing arms, and swiveling knees. To even attempt it in a long, restrictive skirt and a boned corset would be a physical impossibility. You go to a dance hall or a speakeasy. The band starts up, and the dance floor becomes a chaotic, joyous mass of movement. You kick your legs forward and back, your arms swinging in opposition. The dance is explosive and liberating. It's pure, unadulterated physical expression, and your clothes have to be able to keep up. This is where the flapper dress finds its ultimate form. The hemlines, which have been creeping up all decade, now make a decisive leap to the knee, or even slightly above it for the most daring. This isn't just about showing off your legs, it's a matter of pure practicality. You need your legs free to execute the high kicks of the Charleston. Any lower, and the skirt would get tangled, tripping you up. The silhouette remains straight and loose, a tube dress that hangs from the shoulders. The waist is dropped, a horizontal line drawn somewhere down near your hips, which de-emphasizes your natural waist and adds to the boyish look. But now, the dresses are adorned with new elements, designed specifically for movement. rows upon rows of fringe, beading that shimmers and sways, panels of silk that fly out as you twirl. When you stand still, the dress is just a simple beaded shift, but when you dance, it comes alive. The fringe shimmies and shakes, accentuating every kick and twist. The beads catch the dim lights of the club, creating a dazzling, glittering spectacle. The dress is no longer a static piece of clothing, it's a partner in the dance, an extension of your energy. The historical relationship between dance and fashion in the 1920s is a perfect feedback loop. Did the dresses get shorter to accommodate the dance? Or did the dance become more energetic because the shorter dresses allowed for it? The answer is both. They evolved together, pushing each other toward greater freedom and extravagance. Fashion historians see this as a key moment where clothing design becomes explicitly kinetic, designed for a body in motion, not a body at rest. One of the more charming and forgotten accessories dictated by this dance craze was the dance compact. These were tiny, ornate cases, often worn on a chain around the wrist or suspended from a finger by a ring. They were just big enough to hold a powder puff and a small cake of powder, and perhaps a tiny lipstick. A woman couldn't be expected to carry a purse while doing the energetic Charleston, so these little compacts allowed her to discreetly touch up her makeup mid-dance, ensuring her face remained perfectly matte and her cupid's bow perfectly sharp, even as she was kicking up a storm. The shoes also have to change. The dainty, high-heeled pumps of the past are useless for the Charleston. You need something more secure. The popular style becomes a shoe with a strap over the instep, what we now call Mary Jane. The T-strap shoe also becomes ubiquitous. These straps hold the shoe firmly on your foot, no matter how vigorously you dance. The heels are still there, but they become a bit thicker and more stable, like the Spanish or Louis heel. You are a whirlwind of fringe, beads, and kicking legs. The new active, suntan body has found its perfect expression in a dance and a style of dress that is all about energy, movement, and a joyful, almost frantic celebration of life. The transformation feels complete. You look the part, you move the part. The final piece of the puzzle is the scent. The light, simple floral perfumes of the past just won't do for this new modern woman. You need a fragrance that is as complex, artificial, and revolutionary as you are. You browse the perfume counter, a dazzling landscape of crystal bottles and evocative names. For generations, a respectable woman's scent was simple and singular. You smelled of roses, or lavender, or lily of the valley. The goal was to smell like a flower, to evoke a sense of natural, innocent purity. Perfumes were straightforward, easy to identify, and linked to the familiar sense of a garden. But you are not a simple garden flower. You are a complex, modern creation, and you crave a scent that reflects that. The old perfumes feel naive. They belong to the world of your mother, the world of long hair and longer skirts. You are looking for something new, something that smells not of nature, but of modernity itself. The breakthrough comes, once again, from the House of Chanel. In 1921, Coco Chanel, in collaboration with the perfumer Ernest Beau, launched a fragrance that would change the industry forever. Chanel No. 5th. You hear about it from a friend, or you read about it in Vogue. The name itself is a statement of minimalist chic. Not Gardenia Passion or Midnight Rose, but a number. It sounds like a scientific formula, a piece of modern art. You get a chance to smell it. The first impression is baffling. It doesn't smell like any single flower you can identify. It's a complex, abstract bouquet, a whirlwind of notes that are hard to pin down. It is bright and sparkling at first, then warm and sensual, then soft and powdery. It doesn't smell like nature, it smells like a composition. It smells like a woman. A sophisticated, intriguing, slightly mysterious woman. The secret to Chanel No. 5, and too many of the new modern perfumes of the era, was the use of aldehydes. Aldehydes are synthetic chemical compounds. When used in perfumery, they don't smell like anything in nature, but they have a remarkable effect on the other ingredients. They act as an accelerant, making the floral notes sparkle and effervesce, giving the perfume a champagne-like fizzy quality. It was this synthetic, unnatural note that made Chanel No. 5. So revolutionary? No, it was the scent of the future. The historical significance of this shift is immense. The embrace of synthetic ingredients in perfume mirrored the era's broader embrace of the artificial, from the Cupid's bow lips to the bakelite cigarette holders. Authenticity and naturalism were out sophisticated, man-made creations were in. Historians of scent argue that this was the moment perfume truly became an art form, moving beyond simple imitation of nature into the realm of abstract composition. Much like modern painting moved from landscapes to cubism, while Chanel No. 5 was the most famous, other complex, Oriental and Chypre fragrances also gained popularity. Guerlain S. Shalimar, launched in 1925, was a dark, sensual, vanilla and incense-laden scent inspired by the romance of the Taj Mahal. Caron's Nuit de Noël Christmas Eve was a rich, spicy, mossy fragrance designed to be worn with winter furs. These were not perfumes for a young girl in a white dress. They were perfumes for a woman who smoked, drank, and danced to Charleston. They were scents with depth, history, and a touch of melancholy. A peculiar and little-remembered aspect of 1920s perfumery was the fad for scent matching your perfume to your personality, or even your hair color. Beauty columns would advise blondes to wear light, airy scents, while brunettes were steered toward heavier, more mysterious oriental fragrances. Redheads were often advised to wear spicy or green perfumes. It was a kind of olfactory horoscope, an attempt to systematize the new, complex world of fragrance and provide women with a guide for choosing their signature scent, a concept that was itself brand new. You choose your new perfume. Maybe it's the old HYDIC sparkle of No. 5 or the smoky vanilla of Shalimar. You dab it on your pulse points, your wrists, the base of your throat, behind your ears. The scent mingles with the faint smell of tobacco from your cigarettes and the powder on your face. It is your personal olfactory signature, the final, invisible layer of your carefully constructed flapper identity. You are now, from head to toe, inside and out, the epitome of the Roaring Twenties. But the decade, with its frantic, glittering, high-stakes energy, is burning like a candle at both ends. The party has been going on for nearly 10 years straight. And as the decade draws to a close, the sound of the jazz band is about to be drowned out by a much more terrifying noise, the sound of a crash. It's October 1929th. The air, which for so long has been thick with the scent of perfume and possibility, now carries a new, acrid smell. Fear. The change happens with breathtaking speed. One day, the newspapers are full of stories about rising stock prices and record profits. The next, they are filled with tales of ruin. The stock market, the engine of the decade's prosperity, has not just faltered, it has collapsed. The crash doesn't happen in a single day. It's a sickening, week-long plummet. Black Thursday, Black Monday, Black Tuesday. Each day brings worse news. Fortunes built on paper and speculation vanish in a matter of hours. You hear stories of powerful men, titans of industry who just last week were driving Rolls-Royces, now ruined, their lives shattered. At first, it feels distant, something happening to other people. Your daily life doesn't change immediately. The jazz bands still play, the dance halls are still open, but a chill has entered the atmosphere. The frantic, joyous energy of the party begins to curdle into something more like hysteria. The laughter sounds a little more forced, the dancing a little more desperate. It's the frantic final hour of a party when everyone knows the sun is about to rise on a cold, hard reality. The carefree, devil-may-care attitude that defined the decade suddenly seems foolish and naive. The relentless pursuit of pleasure, the obsession with the now, feels unsustainable in the face of this new, terrifying uncertainty. The money is simply gone. The easy credit, the booming economy that fueled the production of cars, radios, and endless tubes of lipstick, that whole system has seized up. And as the economic reality begins to bite, so to do the cultural attitudes. The flapper, who for a decade was a symbol of modern, exciting womanhood, starts to be seen in a different light. She is now viewed as frivolous, selfish, and irresponsible. Her short skirts, her drinking, her immoral lifestyle are pointed to by social conservatives as a symptom of the decay that led to this disaster. The party is over, and the blame game has begun. The change is reflected in the pages of the very magazines that created the flapper ideal. The tone shifts from celebratory to sober. Articles about the latest dance crazes are replaced by articles about household budgeting and making do. Fashions become more conservative, more practical. The extravagant, beaded Charleston dress, which cost a small fortune and was useful only for partying, is now an absurd extravagant. The historical analysis of this turning point is complex. Did the Great Depression single-handedly kill the flapper, or was the flapper ideal already beginning to fade, with the crash simply delivering the final, decisive blow? Many historians argue that by 1929, the flapper look had become so mainstream that it had lost its rebellious edge. When everyone has a bob and a short skirt, it's no longer a statement. The culture was already searching for something new, and the economic crisis provided a powerful catalyst for that change. A small, sad, and forgotten consequence of the crash was the collapse of many of the smaller, independent cosmetic and fashion houses. The giant companies like Max Factor and Chanel could weather the storm, but the little brands, the ones that perhaps made a specific type of rouge or a peculiarly daring style of hat, were wiped out. The vibrant, competitive marketplace of the 22nd became more consolidated, more dominated by a few big players. The era of wild experimentation began to draw to a close, replaced by a need for safe, reliable, commercial products. You walk down the street and the mood is visibly different. There are more worried faces. The hemlines you see on other women seem to be subtly dropping. The bright, bold colors of the mid-22nd are being replaced by more somber, practical shades. You look at your own reflection in a shop window, the boyish silhouette, the painted face, the defiant cigarette holder. For the first time, your look doesn't feel modern. It feels like a costume from a bygone era. An era that ended last Tuesday. The Roaring Twenties are over, and in the harsh, grey light of the 1932s, a new woman, with a new body and a new set of ideals, is about to emerge from the wreckage. The new decade dawns not with a roar but with a sigh. The 1932s is a time of austerity, of making do. The national mood is somber, and the ideal of beauty shifts to reflect it. The frivolous, boyish, party girl look of the flapper feels out of step with the times. A new, more womanly ideal begins to take shape, one that is softer, more mature, and more traditionally feminine. The straight, hard line of the Garkin-me silhouette is replaced by a gentle, flowing curve. You notice it in the new dress designs, which are beginning to appear in department store windows. The waistline, which had been defiantly dropped to the hips for a decade, creeps back up to its natural position. The cut of the clothes changes too. Instead of the straight, tubular shifts, you see dresses cut on the bias, a technique that involves cutting the fabric diagonally to its grain. This makes the fabric cling and drape, subtly revealing the natural curves of the body rather than obscuring them. The boyish, flat-chested look is no longer the ideal. A soft, rounded bust and gently defined hips are back in fashion. The hard, rubberized girdles designed to flatten you into submission are replaced by new undergarments, like the two-way stretch girdle, which promise control but also allow for a more natural, curved shape. Brassieres are no longer about minimizing, they are designed to lift and separate, to create a soft, feminine contour under the new, clingier fabrics. It's a return to a more traditional form of femininity, but with a modern, elegant twist. The look is heavily influenced by a new generation of Hollywood stars. Actresses like Greta Garbo and Marlene Dietrich project an image of aloof, sophisticated glamour, while stars like Jean Harlow embody a more overtly sensual, womanly ideal. Their on-screen wardrobes, often designed by legendary costumers like Adrian, set the new standard. The clothes are long, elegant, and fluid, emphasizing a tall, slender, but distinctly curved silhouette. Historians often interpret this return to the curve as a societal reaction to the economic crisis. In times of hardship, culture often gravitates toward more traditional and comforting values. The re-emphasis on a womanly figure can be seen as part of a broader cultural shift back toward traditional gender roles, with women being gently nudged out of the workforce and back toward the domestic sphere to make room for male breadwinners. The debate continues: was this new silhouette a celebration of a more mature, natural female form, or was it a conservative backlash against the freedoms the flapper represented? One of the most interesting unforgotten beauty trends of this transitional period was the natural makeup look. After a decade of painted, artificial faces, the new ideal was a more subtle, naturally beautiful appearance. This didn't mean women stopped wearing makeup, far from it. In fact, the cosmetics industry continued to grow throughout the Depression, but the application techniques changed. Instead of the stark white powder and bold circles of rouge, the goal was a creamy, healthy-looking complexion with subtly blended color on the cheeks. The tiny, drawn-on Cupid's bow mouth was replaced by a fuller, more natural lip line, though the colors remained rich and dark. The smoky, kohl-rimmed eye gave way to a more refined look with subtle eyeshadow, mascara, and a neatly defined eyebrow. The artifice was still there, but it was designed to look less artificial. Your own body, which you worked so hard to discipline into a boyish shape, is now, without any effort on your part, back in style. The diet culture eases slightly. While slimness is still prized, the diet culture eases slightly. While slimness is still prized, the goal is no longer skeletal, prepubescent thinness, but a softer, healthier-looking slenderness. Your hair starts to grow out. The sharp, severe bob is replaced by softer, longer styles with waves and curls. A look that is perceived as more romantic and less aggressive. You look in the mirror and see a different person emerging. The defined, sharp-angled girl of the 1920s is softening, her edges blurring into a more graceful, flowing form. It's a quieter, more subdued kind of beauty. But as you embrace this new, softer ideal, the ghosts of the past decade's beauty routines linger. The choices you made in the frantic pursuit of the flapper look, the diets, the pills, the poisons have left a permanent, invisible mark. The party is a distant echo now, a faint Justin playing in a room deep in your memory. It's the 1930s, and then the 1940s. You are no longer the girl with the sharp bob and the boyish frame, you are a woman. You've lived through a depression and are witnessing another world war. The world has moved on, and so have you. But the past is a way of embedding itself in the body, leaving behind a ledger of old debts. The first debt you pay every morning. It's a cough, a low, persistent rattle in your chest that never quite clears. The cigarettes, which began as a symbol of chic rebellion, a prop for your modern persona, have become a tiresome, nagging need. That glamorous gesture of lighting up has lost its romance. Now it's just a habit, a chemical craving you have to satisfy. Your teeth, despite your best efforts, have a stubborn yellow stain that no toothpaste can erase. Your doctor mentions your smoker's cough with a concerned look, but it's such a common complaint among your generation that it's almost treated as normal. Then there are the quieter, more mysterious ailments. A persistent ache in your bones, especially in your jaw, that you chalk up to age or the damp weather. You never connect it, of course, to the elegant jar of Tho-Radia cream you used so faithfully for a few years back in the 20s. The radium you lovingly massaged into your skin is still there, lodged in your skeleton, a silent ticking clock of cellular decay. This is a puzzle that medical historians still try to piece together, sifting through anecdotal accounts and mortality statistics. How many cases of unexplained anemia, bone cancer, or leukemia in the mid-20th century can be traced back to the radioactive cosmetics of the Jazz Age? The records are incomplete, the causal link impossible to prove on an individual level. The victims of this particular beauty trend remain ghosts in the data, their suffering disconnected from its glamorous, long-forgotten cause. It represents one of the most terrifying, invisible legacies of the era, a silent epidemic whose true scale will never be known. And your eyes, the world never quite came back into sharp focus after those nights of belladonna drops. There's a permanent sensitivity to bright light, a slight, persistent blurriness at the edges of things that you've just grown accustomed to. Your optometrist might diagnose you with chronic dry or early-onset cataracts, never knowing that you willingly poisoned your vision for the sake of a fashionable, wide-eyed gaze. A lesser-known, but deeply personal legacy of the era resides in your mouth. The 1920s war on your body was also a war on your teeth. The extreme diets, like the infamous Hollywood diet heavy on acidic grapefruit, eroded your tooth enamel. The malnutrition from prolonged calorie restriction weakened them from the inside. Add to that the often gritty, abrasive nature of early tooth powders. The result, for many women of your generation, was a lifetime of dental problems. The brilliant movie star smile was an illusion. The reality was crumbling teeth, constant fillings, and for many, the quiet embarrassment of dentures at a surprisingly young age. Beyond the physical, there is the psychological shadow. You spent the most formative decade of your youth engaged in a relentless campaign of self-criticism. You learned to view food as a number, your body as a project to be managed, your face as a canvas to be corrected. Those habits of thought, once ingrained, are hard to erase. Even now, as you embrace a softer, more mature figure, you sometimes catch a glimpse of yourself in the mirror and hear the faint, critical whisper of the flapper, judging a curve here, a softness there. It's the ghost of a beauty standard that demanded you wage a war against your own nature. You sit in your comfortable chair, perhaps with a grandchild playing on the floor. You are the embodiment of survival, a woman who has navigated immense social and historical change. But you are also a living archive of a strange and dangerous time. You carry the legacy of the Roaring Twenties not just in your memories, but in your very bones, your lungs and your very bones, your lungs and your vision. And as you look back at that bright, glittering, reckless young woman you once were, a question begins to form in your mind. A question that historians will debate for the next century with all the risks, the pain, the poison. Was it worth it? Was she a symbol of liberation, or just a beautiful, tragic victim of her time? You sit with this question, letting it settle like dust in the quiet afternoon light. Was it liberation, or was it just a different kind of cage, one with glittering, fashionable bars? The debate isn't just for historians. In their ivory towers, it's the central, unresolved paradox of your own life. On the one hand, you can still summon the electric thrill of it all. You remember the astonishing lightness of your head, of the pure, deep joy of taking a full breath without the steel and bone of a corset digging into your ribs. These weren't small things. They were the first generation of women in memory to feel the wind and yawn for a streetcar without a cage of petticoats threatening to trip you. You were claiming your space in the world literally. You walked into barber shops. You drove automobiles. You strode in to speak as IS and ordered a drink. You were part of the first generation of American women to cast a vote in a presidential election. Your new look, the short skirt, the easy-fitting dress felt like the uniform for this new, public-facing life. It was a visual declaration that you were no longer confined to the domestic sphere. You were a citizen, a participant, a force to be reckoned with. The flapper in this light looks like a true pioneer, a feminist icon who broke down the walls of the 19th century with her bare hands, or at least with a pair of scissors and a cocktail shaker. But then, a different set of memories creeps in, clouding the bright picture of liberation. You remember the constant, gnawing hunger of the diet, the anxious morning weigh-ins on the cold bathroom scale, the bitter taste of the appetite's oppressing cigarette, the dizzying, blurry world seen through belladonna-filled eyes. Was it truly freedom to trade the tyranny of the corset for the tyranny of the corset for the tyranny of the scale? Was it liberation to free your lungs from hollow bone, only to fill them with tobacco smoke? This is the question that historians are still fiercely debating. Was the flapper a revolutionary who chose her own path, or was she the first great victim of modern consumer culture, an unwitting puppet whose strings were pulled by movie studios and advertising agencies? You close your eyes and you can see the advertisements so clearly. The beautiful, slender woman reaching for a lucky instead of a sweet. The promise of a schoolgirl complexion from a bar of soap. The movie magazines showing you exactly how to get Clara Bowles' lips or Colleen Moore's hair. Your rebellion, your quest for a new identity, was channeled almost immediately into a shopping list. Freedom, it turned out, required the purchase of a specific lipstick, a particular face cream, a brand-name cigarette. Your desire to be a new woman was expertly redirected into a desire to be a new kind of consumer. And then there was the strange, pervasive concept of it. The word was everywhere, popularized by a 1927 film starring Clara Bow, who was crowned the It Girl. But what was it? No one could quite define it. But everyone knew it was the ultimate quality a modern girl could possess. It was a magnetic, vivacious charm, a self-confidence that was alluring without being aggressive. You and your friends would analyze the movie stars trying to dissect this magical quality. Did you have it? How could you get it? Of course, the answer was always implicitly tied to the products she used, the clothes she wore, the way she smiled. It was the ultimate marketing to the manufactured ideal of personality that could only be achieved by consuming the right things. It was a brilliant way to sell not just a product, but an entire identity. So which was the real you, the brave girl striding into the barbershop, making a bold personal choice, or the anxious girl studying a magazine, trying to perfectly replicate a movie star's face so that she too might have it? You lived it, and even you don't have a clear answer. The two things were angled together, inseparable. The rebellion and the commercialism fed each other. You used the products of consumer culture as the tools for your personal revolution. You bought the lipstick and the short dress to feel powerful and free, to break from your mother's world. The cage and the key, it seems, were made of the same glittering, commercial material. But it came at a very high, and often hidden, price. And as you ponder this, you look at the world around you now, at your own granddaughters, and you can't help but see the echoes of your own story, playing out in a new century, with new technologies, but with the same old pressures. You pick up a glossy magazine from the coffee table, a publication from a world of color photographs and digital perfection that would have been unimaginable in your youth. You flip through the pages and a strange sense of vertigo washes over you. The language is different, the faces are new, but the song is eerily the same. You see a young actress, impossibly thin, celebrated for her discipline and her dedication to a new kind of diet. Maybe it's paleo, or keto, or intermittent fasting. The names have changed, but the goal is the same, a body achieved through rigorous, punishing self-denial. You remember your own 18-day diet of grapefruit and toast, and you see the direct, unbroken line connecting her struggle to yours. The technology of thinness has evolved, but the tyranny of it remains. You see an advertisement for a cosmetic procedure. A doctor in a clean white coat, just like the ones in the old ads, promises to erase wrinkles with a noractosinol plumpix with a hyaluronic acid filler. The science is more advanced, the language more clinical, but the promise is identical to the one made by the jar of Tho-Radia cream, a scientific miracle that will hold back time and bestow a youthful glow. You wonder what silent, long-term price these new miracles might one day exact. You watch your granddaughter as she stares into the small, glowing screen of her phone. She is not looking at a magazine or a movie star, but at an influencer, a girl her own age who has mastered the art of the perfect selfie. She pouts her lips and dangles her face, creating a carefully constructed image of effortless beauty. She is chasing her own version of it, an algorithm-defined ideal of popularity and allure. You see the same focus, the same quiet anxiety you felt trying to paint the perfect Cupid's bow lips. The mirror has just become smaller, more interactive, and infinitely more demanding. The debate you have in your own mind, liberation versus consumption, is playing out all over again. Are these new tools of social media a form of self-expression, empowering a new generation to create and control their own image, or are they just a more efficient cage? A global tiefenjahr's beauty contest with invisible judges and ever-shifting rules. Historians of the future will surely argue over this, just as they argue about you. They will debate whether the filtered face of the 21st century was a tool of feminist power or a symptom of a new digital dysmorphia. You read about a new wellness trend. Perhaps it's a supplement, an exotic berry from a faraway mountain, or a special kind of clay to be mixed with water and ingested. The ads promise to detoxify your system and optimize your cellular health. You remember the confident promises of Roddy Thor, the radium-laced water that was supposed to energize the body from within. The pseudoscience has a more sophisticated vocabulary now, but the fundamental appeal is the same: a magic potion, a shortcut to the vitality that the modern world seems to drain away. Even the old poisons have their modern echoes. You hear a news report about teenagers using eyedrops not intended for cosmetic use to make the whites of their eyes appear brighter for photos, risking irritation and long-term damage. It's a distant cousin to your belladonna drops, A new generation finding new ways to risk their sight for a fleeting aesthetic ideal. You put the magazine down. It's almost overwhelming. The relentless pressure to be thin, to be young, to be beautiful, to be current, it has gone away. If anything, it has become more intense, more pervasive, more inescapable. The party of the 1920 seconds may be over, but the machinery that it set in motion, the fusion of celebrity, media, and commerce into a powerful engine of beauty standards, is still running, faster and more efficiently than ever. You were the first experiment, the first generation of women to be fully subjected to the forces of modern mass media and its relentless portrayal of an idealized, and often dangerous, femininity. Your story is not a dusty relic of the past. It is the prologue. You look at your granddaughter, lost in the glow of her screen, and you feel a profound sense of connection, a strange mix of pride in her confidence and a deep, empathetic fear for the invisible battles she will have to fight. The world has changed beyond recognition, but the ghost of the flapper, it seems, is still dancing in the machine. The light outside your window has softened now, turning that deep velvety blue of late twilight. The sharp edges of the day have dissolved, and the world is growing quiet. The story is over, but the figures still flicker at the edges of your mind, like silent movie stars on a screen. You can almost hear the faint sound of edges band, the clink of a glass, the rustle of a beaded dress. The air in your room feels still and peaceful, one that fills your lungs all the way to the bottom, a breath deeper than any flapper in her itis girdle could ever manage. Feel the gentle weight of your blanket, the safe and comforting pressure. You are far from the roar of that glittering, dangerous decade. You are here now in the quiet dark. The anxieties of the scale, the sting of the eyedropper, the gnawing hunger of the diet, let them all fade away. They are just echoes now, whispers from a long time ago. Your only task at this moment is to let go. Allow your thoughts to drift and soften, like the blurry, beautiful world seen through belladonna eyes, but without any of the danger. There is only peace here. You can feel a gentle pull, a current of sleep drawing you softly away from the shore of wakefulness. Let it carry you. You are floating now into the deep, quiet, restorative dark. The end of the article. Good night.